I did a video recently on my travel essentials, and one of them was my phone, or more specifically the apps I've got on my phone. Now, this is showing my age a little bit, but I remember travelling without smartphones, without phones at all, and this makes so much of a difference now that there are certain things that I think are just indispensable and they make things so much easier. So I'm going to go through with you what I have on my Totoro phone when we go travelling. So the first one is Google Maps. You can preload a map. You can turn it on to flight mode and you'll still get the little blue dot. So you can still check where you're going, which direction you're going in as well, because the little arrow will tell you, and that has saved us so much time and effort trying to find where we're going, because you can just preload it and then just follow the little blue dot. So number one, Google Maps. What else have we got here? Number two is a few different apps. It's basically messaging apps. So I've got WhatsApp, so people who I've got their phone number and I would speak to in the UK, I can use WhatsApp. Friends and family who are abroad that I don't normally text or don't have WhatsApp, I speak to on Facebook Messenger or email. And last of all is Skype. So for like Leo's mum and dad, we would be calling a landline, so we would use Skype to do that because it's a lot cheaper. And I tend to use those 3 or 4, if you include email, messaging apps to keep in touch with people while we're away. Going back to maps, it depends on the country that we're in. So we're currently, when this would be posted, we're currently in Paris and they have a metro. So what you can do is get the tube app. So you've got one of these for London, Berlin, wait for this to load. This is the London one. So you can figure out where you're going and you've got a map there. So it depends on the country and depends where you're going, but if that is a thing, like Tokyo as well, like some of these undergrounds are just like a rabbit warren. So this helps you because you can put in where you are, where you're going, and it will route it for you. So that is really, really useful. An unusual choice here because it doesn't immediately shout kind of travel, but it is incredibly useful, is Instagram. The reason behind this is because you can search hashtags for where you are. So for example, vegan Bangkok, and it will show you restaurants. So you can go through, you can find where places are, like I've got coconut things coming up there, and it shows you the location, where it is, and it's things that you wouldn't necessarily normally find, and it gives you a chance to see more of the food that's on offer as well. Because one of my other apps that is definitely essential is the Happy Cow app. This one here. Now you can search for vegan restaurants and it will give you a list of names, it will give you like a bit of information. It's really good because it does have a lot of information. However, combining it with Instagram gives you more information on what that restaurant offers. Sometimes the information on Happy Cow is slightly out of date as well, so this just gives you kind of like a two-parter bit of information for restaurants when you're out and about travelling. This is another one, it depends more on the airline as opposed to where you're going. A lot of airlines have apps now, so like EasyJet has one, like when we're going on short flights, and you can use the app to check in, get your boarding pass and everything, so I find that really useful. However, not all airlines have them, and not all the airlines that do have them actually have useful apps. For example, Eva Air that we just flew to Bangkok with, they have an app. It's not particularly useful. It gives you the opportunity to check in 24 hours beforehand, but it didn't work. It doesn't give you a boarding pass, it doesn't give you any information, and then when you get to the airport they check you in again anyway because the online one doesn't work. So while it was useful just to have, like you had to put in the reference number every time as well, but you could put that in and it would just tell you that everything's okay with your flight or if it's delayed or what's going on. So depending on the airline, double check and see if they've got an app, because sometimes they are really, really useful. Other times, just delete it. There's no real point. last of all, and this is a bit of a weird one for me because I know they're not a great company to their people and I'm a bit torn about using it, but the Uber app, we've used it a couple of times. We used it in Zagreb and we used it in Bangkok, both times to get a taxi out to the airport. Zagreb, it would have been, I think we left at like 5 in the morning. It was a ridiculous time, and we would have had to have got a tram from where we were to like somewhere else, switch the tram, got to somewhere else, then got on a bus, and at that time in the morning, I'm not awake. I'm not going to know if I'm going in the right direction. I'm too nervous to do that just before I'm getting on a flight. So instead, I can order a taxi in advance. I'm not going to be able to speak the local language because I don't want to mess it up. And I know that I can get from where I am to the airport on time, and it's all paid for as well. So that's absolutely fine. I don't have to worry about the language barrier with that. And it was the same with Bangkok. Where we were staying, we would have had like a 25-minute walk with all our luggage on the underground, then got to the SkyTrain, get the SkyTrain over to the airport. It's doable. All of this is doable. Before we had apps and had things like this, we would have just done it. But because there's things like the Uber app, you can see that your taxi is coming, you can get it pre-booked, and you know where you're going, and it's all tracked. So I'm a bit torn about using it, but ultimately I'll only use it when we desperately need to. A useful but not essential app is iBook, which I have on here. I don't like to take a book with me when I'm travelling because the amount of times I've carried a book around a country and brought it home again without even opening it, it's just a waste of space. Whereas iBook, you can download a book while you're in the airport using the Wi-Fi, and you have a book and it's all included in your phone. So not essential but useful. The same as podcasts, not essential but it is useful if you need some kind of entertainment or something because you've forgotten your book or if you don't want to carry one. So that's about it. I've got loads of other rubbish here on my phone, but these things I find essential. I can ultimately clear everything else out of my phone. But these are the ones that I use when I'm travelling. You can get things like a currency calculator, but it depends where you're going. So we tend to just try and get an idea of what the currency is in our head. So for example, in Japan, 100 yen was about 70p when we were there. Instead of trying to work out weird numbers, take 100, knock off 2 zeros, make it a pound. So we just did that. 1,000 yen, knock off 2 zeros, it's a tenner. It's not, but you know, it gives us a vague idea. The same with Bangkok. It was knock off 2 zeros and double it. So 100 baht was £2. Again, it's not kind of perfect because it's a little bit more than that, but it gives us an idea. If you don't want to do it like that and you want to know exactly what you're paying, you can get a currency converter, and that will be very, very helpful. But it's not something that we kind of use. The same as you can get translators, but if you've not got Wi-Fi, if you're not going to use your data where you are, so in Asia it will cost us £5 a day to use our data. It's not worth it just for like a little translator app. It's not something I worry about. But again, if it's something that you would be interested in and if it would make your life better, by all means go for it. It's just not something that is essential to us.